Bad Bunny has never hidden his position on Trump or social issues. Like many influential figures, he has consistently used his platform to make his views unmistakably clear, whether in interviews, music, or live performances, making him one of the most politically outspoken mainstream entertainers today. During the last presidential race, Bad Bunny openly aligned himself with Kamala Harris. His support came shortly after a comedian at a Trump rally made offensive remarks about Puerto Rico. At that time, both campaigns were aggressively courting the Puerto Rican vote, particularly in Pennsylvania, where nearly 500,000 Puerto Ricans reside. Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, better known as Bad Bunny, amplified Harris's campaign by sharing her promotional clip with his 45 million Instagram followers, a move that immediately carried political weight. His influence extended beyond social media into his art. In his recent music video, Noia, there is a striking segment where Donald Trump's voice plays over speakers in a reimagined scene. The visual depicts a reality in which Trump is forced to apologize to immigrants, declaring, "This country is nothing without the immigrants." That was the NFL's way of making it very official that Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny will headline the 2026 Super Bowl halftime show. Take a peek. Moments like these highlight how Bad Bunny blends politics with entertainment, using music as a platform to challenge mainstream narratives. This direct political expression is also one of the main reasons his Super Bowl announcement has triggered backlash among conservatives. Much of the criticism centers on his unwavering stance regarding immigration, a polarizing subject in the United States. His outspoken opposition to ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, has been particularly controversial. While many already understand the role ICE plays, those unfamiliar should know it is the government agency tasked with immigration enforcement, deportations, and detention operations across the nation. Basically, ICE is the government branch responsible for immigration enforcement in America, and it has long been criticized for the way it carries out mass deportations and raids. Officially, ICE frames its mission as targeting the bad guys, gang members, traffickers, and violent offenders. But critics argue its operations disproportionately disrupt ordinary immigrant families. During Donald Trump's presidency, the agency became especially controversial for its aggressive tactics, which many Latino communities described as traumatic and discriminatory. I want to apologize to the immigrants in America. This country is nothing without Mexicans, Dominicans. Because Latinos have often been the majority impacted by these policies, the tension between ICE and Latin American artists, activists, and audiences has only deepened over time. This backdrop also explains why during his most recent tour, Bad Bunny skipped the mainland United States entirely. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, so while he performed extensively there, he avoided shows in major continental U.S. cities. Fans quickly noticed the absence and speculated about his reasoning. In a recent interview, Bad Bunny finally addressed the issue directly, acknowledging concerns about ICE and explaining his choice. He said, "Honestly, yes. There are many reasons why I didn't show up in the U.S., and none of them were out of hate. I've performed there many times. All of the shows were successful, all magnificent. I've enjoyed connecting with Latinos who've been living in the U.S." He went on to explain that his Puerto Rico residency allowed U.S. fans to travel there instead, emphasizing that Puerto Ricans and Latinos from the mainland could join the shows in San Juan or anywhere else in the world. In his view, this approach gave him creative freedom while sidestepping political pressures he believed still exist in the U.S. tour market. But there was also the issue of ICE possibly showing up outside his concerts, and Bad Bunny admitted this was something he and his team had discussed with real concern. That statement alone reveals his mindset. He isn't just focused on music. He's deeply focused on ensuring safety and inclusivity for his audience. For him, protecting his community from unnecessary risks takes priority over ticket sales. With his new Super Bowl halftime announcement, however, the conversation has shifted dramatically. Critics, particularly from conservative circles, are now arguing that he doesn't belong on such a prestigious stage, pointing to both his outspoken politics and the fact that the majority of his music is performed in Spanish rather than English. At the same time, influential voices within the music industry have celebrated the decision. Jay-Z, who helps oversee the halftime show through his Roc Nation partnership, praised Bad Bunny as inspiring for everything he has accomplished for Puerto Rico. Bruno Mars also offered his support publicly on Twitter, encouraging Bad Bunny with a rallying message. It's important to note that Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory and Bad Bunny is legally just as much of an American citizen as those criticizing him. Beyond that, his impact in Puerto Rico has been undeniable. Over the summer, he launched a historic 31-day residency, an unprecedented streak of concerts in one venue. That residency drew in 500,000 fans and generated more than $700 million for the island's economy, cementing him as both a cultural force and an economic powerhouse. It wasn't just a string of concerts. It was a full-scale celebration of Puerto Rican culture, blending traditional music, national pride, and modern artistry. Bad Bunny turned his residency into a cultural milestone that extended far beyond entertainment. He demonstrated how music can become an economic engine, literally shifting financial outcomes for the island. Since Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, his impact doesn't stop at its shores. The ripple effect ties directly back into the broader American economy. This is significant when you consider the current challenges facing U.S. tourism. Reports suggest the nation could lose nearly $30 billion in international tourism revenue this year alone. Rising travel costs, political tensions, and the burdensome reputation of U.S. customs procedures are discouraging visitors, leaving major gaps in spending. One of the few areas offsetting that decline is discretionary spending, particularly on entertainment, concerts, and live events. That's exactly where Bad Bunny's influence becomes critical. His performances are generating extraordinary demand, with audiences traveling long distances to see him live. Because he hasn't been running a traditional U.S. tour, fans have been flying directly to Puerto Rico, creating a tourism wave centered around his shows. Every dollar spent on flights, hotels, restaurants, and concert tickets feeds directly back into the U.S. economy. From this perspective, Bad Bunny isn't just a performer selling out arenas. He's a cultural powerhouse, generating billions in spending and revitalizing a sector struggling to find momentum. His success demonstrates how one artist can reshape not only culture, but also economic flows across borders. This is an artist with the power to shift entire economies, and the NFL is fully aware of that influence. Bad Bunny isn't just a performer. He's an international phenomenon with crossover appeal that very few artists possess. When you put someone of his stature on the Super Bowl halftime stage, advertisers immediately see dollar signs. For the league, it's not simply about entertainment. It's about securing global reach, expanding viewership, and maximizing profit. The halftime show has always been about money and influence. With Bad Bunny, the NFL gains access to audiences across Latin America, Europe, and beyond. His presence doesn't just represent Puerto Rico. It draws an international attention and generates revenue that flows back into the American economy. This wider impact is something often overlooked in the backlash. Many critics frame their arguments through a narrow definition of what America should look or sound like. But that outdated viewpoint ignores the reality that America is built on diversity. The Super Bowl isn't only about American tradition anymore. It's a global broadcast. That's why the league prioritizes the biggest names with worldwide appeal. They already have domestic fans locked in. The challenge is capturing additional markets. Bad Bunny represents exactly that. He bridges cultures and markets in ways very few artists can. Another layer to this conversation is his image as an artist. Beyond music, he's been outspoken about his views on gender expression and identity. He doesn't fit neatly into boxes, whether musically or personally. And in an interview from a few years ago, he made that perspective clear. He once explained his perspective by saying, "It doesn't define me at the end of the day. I don't know if in 20 years I will like a man. One never knows in life. But at the moment, I am heterosexual and I like women." For many observers, his inclusion on the Super Bowl halftime stage isn't just about music. It also symbolizes a broader cultural shift. It represents an artist who challenges traditional ideas of masculinity and questions long-standing definitions of what it means to be a man in modern society. Beyond that, much of the controversy surrounding him comes down to his stance on ICE. This has been one of the most polarizing political issues in America over the last decade. Supporters argue ICE is necessary for border security, while critics say it unfairly targets immigrant communities and enforces policies that cause widespread harm. Bad Bunny has always been clear about which side of this debate he stands on, and he has used his platform to highlight those concerns. Some argue artists should simply entertain and avoid politics. But this view ignores the reality that artists are also cultural representatives with lived experiences in communities that look to them for visibility. The Latino population in the United States numbers over 60 million, accounting for nearly 19% of the total population, making them the largest ethnic minority in the country. For them, seeing an artist like Bad Bunny on the most watched stage in America is a form of recognition. And that's the power of entertainment. Music transcends borders, languages, and political divisions. When an artist leaves an undeniable impact, their culture follows them to the biggest platforms in the world. Bad Bunny is proof of that. The NFL's halftime stage has always been about more than music. It's a global billboard where every choice is calculated for maximum impact. That's why the league doesn't just pick whoever is trending. They pick artists who can spark conversation, drive ratings, and attract advertisers willing to spend millions. Think back to Beyoncé and her politically charged performance, or when Jennifer Lopez and Shakira brought Latin culture to the forefront. Each time, the NFL knew it would cause debate, but that debate brought in even more viewers. Bad Bunny fits into that tradition perfectly. He isn't just a hitmaker. He's a cultural lightning rod.